Okay, so hopefully we'll get a few more people, but we're recording it so we can get it out to people. So um, I met Esther in August. My brother and I were in Scotland playing golf, and we played 17 holes. Esther was walking with her husband, and we played 17 holes and realized on the 17th hole that my brother, myself, and Esther are artists. So we hadn't talked about art at all through 3.5 hours, and then we had like 4 minutes. So anyway, that's how I connected with Esther. And then we traded information. So I saw her stuff. I thought it would be a great addition to our series, just because we've done a lot of abstract painters, a lot of kind of mixed media people, but she does some really interesting stuff. That's one of her pieces behind her, that kind of pushes the three dimensionality of just not just a canvas. So it's not sculpt. It's kind of in between. But I'll let her tell you about it. So she's coming to us from New York. So Esther, it's all yours.
Thank you, Peter. Actually, it was very fun the way we encountered, right? We met. And
Yeah.
right. We were so connected and so into golf that we forgot to talk and share anything else. So thank you first to both of you, Peter and Alan, for opening the door of this wonderful get together and sharing, which I find is very useful for us as artists that we mostly work it's a work very isolated, and most of the time we are in our spaces, head space and physical spaces. So having chances to get together is wonderful. So I really thank you for that. And I thank you also because doing pretty about how I could develop this conversation with you, with all of you, is a beautiful there much we need to thank, and how much we need to sometimes to take a look of our journey, and how much we've been evolving and navigating life, which is crucial. I mean, it's very important idea to have in mind for everything, not just for the purpose of art and our work, but also as a very idea that to keep on mind, right, when just for our life. So I'm gonna share first a little bit about myself. I'm a psychologist, and I'm from Spain. I was in Spain and living in Spain mostly, and then another time living in Peru for work, and then back in Spain, and then suddenly around 17, 18 years ago, life in a way put something on top of the table, and we flew family all together. My husband and I and my kids, we moved to the United States, to New York, where we are based since then. So as I said, I'm primarily in my degree psychology, and I was working in human resources. I'm specialized in corporate and human resources, and I could say sometimes I say that's my major professional journey. Nowadays, when I say so, actually is not the longest part. It's not going to be soon enough, not the longest part of my professional journey, because also right now being an artist is being for quite some time an active and a permanent activity and passion. And you might think how I did stop or how do encounter art and why I did decide to go into arts. For me, coming to New York, and I had a very successful career in human resources in a really big corporation, and sometimes, I mean, I had in a way to make a personal decision to accompany my husband and make this transition, huge transition, that in a way I actually wasn't really aware how much would influence myself and how much will influence my own life. So I was all in until I arrived here and living a year or so to settle family. The kids were back then 3 and 6. So when I got hands on my own self, I might say, is when I started thinking, okay, should I get back into corporate or should I do something else? How this works with my life, with my family life, etc. So for me, it's very. I mean, I guess most of the artists that I know I encounter, it seems that the passion for arts and doing art and for the creative process is being rooted and really acknowledged from the very beginning in their lives. But I realized that, I mean, for me, it wasn't that way. I was already almost 37 years old. As I said, different professional paths. Arts wasn't really a thing in my life, not even, like not in my formal training, not in my as a hobby. So for me, when I moved to New York and coming here, and I'm stopping a little bit in this part of my personal story because really marks a journey and a concept that I'm following and exploring into my creative process. So I think it's very important to kind of keep an eye in this phase in my life because it really make a complete, a strong and really unsettled transition for me. So it was, I could say that I had so from that moment on, my life changed completely. I'm not just talking about my moving to New York and leaving my country and etc. But in terms of my purpose, my the meaning of my life, everything in a way, did realize how much my identity was linked to my profession. And when in a way, I lost that, I I didn't see myself in any place. So I was very lost, very vulnerable for quite some time. I had to really stop for first time in my life to really address what would be my next step, professional step, and also, yeah, I had to define something else to fulfill myself, besides, of course, family and so on. So for me, that was a really strong, very, very important key point in my life. Accidentally, actually, fun enough how things, occur in life, accidentally trying to explore what to do, but not as a hobby because myself didn't allow to go into a hobby just per se. I just wanted to make a career with something. But I decided that for that time, actually, the corporate and the positions that I had, it wasn't the right thing to continue doing. So I needed to find what else I was interested in. I had to look inwards to really ask myself what talents did I have, just besides the skills that were very linked to the professional life, the human resources, marketing, psychology, coaching, etc. But what else could I do that allowed me to kind of navigate my life as it was in that precise moment, and still having the personal feeling of growth, learning, giving, what was my purpose, and having all those answers, let's say, figured it out. So I, by totally, very random, because it wasn't, as I said, in my map, I did say I started taking night classes, drawing art classes. And then from there, I did realize, I saw actually, and that was a very surprising and beautiful realization, that I had some skill in terms of arts, doing, creating something, drawing, painting, expressing in different ways as I was doing previously in my life. So that was I mean, for me, art and the creative process is being, I mean, we all know how art is applied to therapy and how many benefits actually bring us uh, in the way the kind of the art and the creative process kind of spark um, specific resources that we all have and force us in a way to think outside of our boxes, our heads, take us away of the attention from our heads to our body, since we kind of bring emotions and bring also intuition and everything else. There are beautiful and wonderful resources that we all have, but most of the time life doesn't really, or our training or our backgrounds, that doesn't really, or our sensitivity, right, doesn't really allow us to open those doors. So for me, art and the creative process, it's been an eye opening, honestly. And I could say that the Esther Rosa before that moment and Esther Rosa after that moment that I started taking first classes, I could say that I had a really major big transition in my life that really put in question everything and allowed me to open doors and explore and bring out from me much more than I was capable to kind of do before. So this is like a brief. I don't know if it's if maybe too brief, but I really wanted to keep an eye. I mean, or explain all these moments because it really influences the way of exploration. I approach the materials that I use, how the creative process is in a way is the teaching in my life. How should I maybe reframe certain ways of thoughts, of thinking, or and you will understand actually. I'm gonna and you can understand. So Peter, Alan, and all these beautiful audience that we have, that this is like a very petit comité. I'm going to share my screen. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, go ahead.
Very nice. I'm gonna stop with this drawing. This is my first ever drawing.
Hey.
And I was amazed. I had some skill. And with art, actually, of course, we all explore. That's the first thing that we need to do in everything that we get into. Be curious, explore, observe, push ourselves out of our comfort zones. Because I find that every time that we do that without fear, without not holding us back, we might not take that road. As later on, I didn't actually take the road of, in terms of art and creative process, creative style. I didn't focus on drawings, but definitely every time I jump from medium to medium, I find that something sticks on me in the way I work with different materials or the way I approach different ideas. So first of all, I mean, it's funny how, and I realize now looking back, is very interesting how depending how is our let's say our mood or our emotional state, it's incredible why I asked why I was doing this kind of drawings, right? I mean, this is a stupid thing, but in a way it brings us a lot of meaning. And I think that's something that we need to ask when we look at to our work and everything that we produce, is why, without maybe an intentional, with no intention behind, why I choose these colors, why I choose this approach, why I choose this concept, why I focus on this or that, right? So now I notice, of course, that everything in my beginning was very black, and I was hoping maybe to cross that bridge, and then find some light at the end, because I was very lost through that process, and they were years, not just a few months. It took me a long time to really figure it out, what I wanted to do, and then get back into myself that at some point I lost. Let's say losing my journey, my professional journey in human resources. So it's fun enough that I was picking dark colors and very dramatic landscapes, and then I was exploring some realism, and then I didn't wanted to paint faces. I don't know why. I did a series of kids with no faces. I guess I didn't really see myself. I didn't want to recognize, or I didn't really. It's funny how I say, how I see that, this is really meaningful. The journey that we take and the story that we walked, our walk of life, bring us a lot of answers, and many times actually when we look back. So exploring, of course, is part always from the journey, and doing this slideshow. It's something that I believe that we need to remind ourselves all the time, because being focused on whatever we're doing right now and in the moment that we're living right now in our journey as a professionals, we might lose the view from far, and that's something that we need to kind of force us in a way to stop and make that assessment. So of course you explore, you look around. In this, as you saw, I was exploring drawings. I was working with pastels. This is a large scale pastel of cityscapes. I was exploring around, wondering what could I do, right? And pushing myself into different mediums. Everything, of course, I live in New York, so New York had to be a theme at some point. I was very pleased actually with these medium pastels. Again, just black and whites. Why? I guess it's because I didn't really see the color, I didn't really have this spark to really do something else. I was lost in this kind of forest that I couldn't really see either what's behind the forest, or what's that perspective that we all need to have from looking everything from the top. So then I started playing with some oils and some acrylics, adding a lot of medium on the paintings. Fun enough, I find now that my evolution or my journey as an artist, actually now I could say I'm more a sculptor kind of thing than a painter. That I started doing a lot of paintings at the very beginning, the first years. So when I started exploring different mediums, and I decided to enroll in a fine art program that I took in 2000, started in 2007 or so, and then finished my thesis on 2012. So through all that time, I was very focused on paintings, thinking that that was my medium. But still, I was using a lot of materials. This has a lot of sand, and first time I'm brave enough, and I've been picking very consciously and intentionally a few. I mean, the work that you're gonna see, and I'm showing you, are very meaningful for me. either because that was a phase of observation, curiosity, pushing myself, trying to explore, having behind those creations on those moments were a lot of fear, not knowing what, something that could come up. And then I realized that I had a perfectionist on me. And then at some point, I didn't allow myself to do just fool around, which is something that we need to do in our lives. But of course, being an artist is part of one of the big talents, actually, to be able to fool around and then explore without fear, and not looking for a specific result, but enjoying the process as it comes. And that's again, it's a teaching that I might be doing these analogies all the time. Of course, I'm primarily a psychologist. So psychology is very, very key and very centered, and is the vertebra, the, how do you say, the column, the vertebra, the spinal vertebra, well, the pillar on myself. So I first time I was using this, strong red that is somehow actually has been kind of present in my work. Again, a lot of medium in this. First time I'm starting being a little bit lighter, working. Still, I'm in the face of a lot of exploration, but little by little, I start noticing how some ways of work, it kind of falls better. I feel better working in a certain way. So this painting, I chose this one. It's like an abstract landscape. Again, nature, of course, I guess, influenced our way of living and doing and being. It's very present, and it should be, actually, because they're very healthy for our minds and our bodies. So it should be present. So it's first time in this painting that I work with metals, with pigments that bring metals, or gold leaves, or silver leaves, or things that imply it brings metals on in the work. And I'm going to explain you briefly why that was very important for me. So when I had to create my first solo show, and as you will know, you have to create a body of work that it has a solid concept, and in a way, for me, this first time, and it's very important because it forced me to really ask myself, okay, Esther, who are you? And if I ask yourself this question, I am, or this affirmation, I am, and stop for a second and keep observe what are those answers. So when I was doing this before, of course, the answer is always my roles. I am professional in this. I am a psychologist. I am mom. I am from Spain. I am, and it seemed that things that are come to ourselves is whatever defined us. So for me, when I had to put this solo show together, I did have to stop for first time, I guess, asking myself who I was. Because it occurred to me that I wasn't the person that I was before. I couldn't say that I was a psychologist because I wasn't really working as a psychologist, and I wasn't really doing that. So that didn't really define me. But being an artist, you have to, in a way, express who you are, why your art actually, what your art bring to this art scene. What your art is exploring, and there are much more than just your titles which answer those questions. So for me, it was very important this moment because I did realize that I had to allow myself to start over, to let go from a past that it was there, definitely. I had it on me, but definitely now it was a really new beginning. And as a new beginning, the first thing that we do, and we face these moments in life many times, the first thing that you do when you come alive is breathing, right? You start breathing. That's the first action, right? The first and the most wonderful action. You start breathing. No matter if your water kind of, still you are not capable to really, swim, but you start breathing. And that's the first important step to move forward. So the title of this show was Breathing. It really defined my journey, starting from, okay, who am I in arts, and what's my art is going to talk about, and what's the intention behind. So my art in this precise moment focused on paintings. Paintings started being really fluid, really atmospheric, as you see in these photos. And very, and I'm gonna stop for a sec here. So very atmospheric, very fluid. I was using kind of a short palette, but still there were specific colors that meant for me more. For some reason, and you see that the transition from the very black and the very dark colors, and then going into the more light hues. So that was very important for me, because of course, definitely that was the way I was feeling. So that was very was very nice to see that I was capable to kind of feel differently, more happy and more relaxed and less heavy, right? And my paintings reflects that. And every single painting that I was actually presenting in this show, I was using bronze in many forms. Funny enough, actually, I realized that I was most of the times work with a very short palette and a very short list of materials. I try to kind of emulate life, in the sense that when we need to reach a goal, we need to achieve a specific thing. Most of the times in life that we don't have the resources that we would like to have. So we need to kind of, first of all, of course, accept that reality, and then try to do our best with whatever we have. Either resources, either the way we feel in that precise moment, that we might not be in our best, but that's whatever we have in that moment. And we still need to give answers, and we need to do something with, right? So as you see, all the time I'm navigating in between the psychology behind the way our mind works, the way we feel, the way life in a way evolves, and then with my art. So including metal on these paintings, this all shows what can I do with those three colors. So I was actually, I'm gonna move ahead and I'm gonna stop in this painting. This painting has a lot of bronze, just one color, one pigment, but allowed me actually, and allows me to really get the best from that metal. I oxidated, so I get that hue of kind of blue. What's the color? The sea. I don't. It doesn't come to me right now. The blue kind of green in the bottom. That's the bronze oxidation, and then the copper behind the first layers of the painting. It shows from actually that shine touch of light from the bottom, and then the kind of the silver gray on the right and top part, that also is a part of bronze mixed with white, so I get that kind of silver bluish So why bronze is so important in my work, and it will be actually part of my work when I evolve into more sculptural with paper clay, is that bronze, it's for me so there's definitely metals most of the time evolve and change through time. So for me, it's a way, a tangible way, a material that allows me to talk in my art about how life is in constant change, is in constant transition, and it has many faces in a way, many nuances. So bringing that into the paintings and later on into the paper clay is kind of allows me to explore that concept. I want to get back into these two photos. When I did this first show, funny enough, you would wonder, what do you have on the floor? Well, those are coffee filters. Why coffee filters in this installation? So first time ever, even though I felt that I was a painter by heart, that was my talent. I was there and that will be my journey. Then I realized when I was kind of setting up for the show that the space were hollow, didn't really bring the whatever I felt that the space needed to bring. So for some time, actually, I was holding the coffee filters that I was using day to day, looking at the beautiful nuances of the sediments of the coffee on the paper of the coffee filters and so on. So I kept several of them. So then it came to me that why. So sometimes as an artist, and that comes in our nature, we need to be open and explore stuff that we have around. Sometimes those things are used for a specific thing. They have a purpose, right? As I thought I had, as a psychologist, I had a purpose to work in a certain way, to professional journey will be this, this, and that. But then I changed the sceneries, my life changed very, very dramatically in a way. And then I was totally lost, right? So how could I, as a coffee filter, be used for something else, right? So for me, bringing the coffee filters in the scene, it was a way to remind myself that we might be thinking that we are made for something specific, but then when life turns a different road, and that won't be possible anymore for any reason, then we feel lost. So why we should actually wonder if definitely explore and then be open and then maybe make another use for whatever we have, right? So that was the meaning of these coffee filters that I just, kind of place in the space as little pots that needed to be born in that were actually, it did open up of a series of sculptures with coffee filters and installations that I'm going to show you right now. So these are a few paintings from the very beginning. As you see, very fluid, oxidation in all of them, a palette that in a way very short, very ethereal, very the process, actually the technical process behind is very similar to watercolor, but these are acrylic paintings, all of them. Metals, as you see, the reflection of the metals, the drops of water that we, as they come, seems like we hold them, right? Trying to keep them when we are thirsty, and then water, just get lost through our fingers. So this is one of, this is one example of the many sculptures that I made with coffee filters. After that idea of splashing and kind of throwing in the floor, why not those coffee filters that meant for me like giving me a chance of a second opportunity and to do something else that wasn't what I was previously doing. So coffee filters in like table sculptures, coffee filters, large coffee filters in installations. Part of every time I was doing a solo show, I was creating some installation to kind of bring a little bit more sense into the meaning of the show, of the paintings that I was showing. So you see here, it seems like a scene, right? Like a water flowing, and then like a little island with, a little place where to stop and catch your breath. Very large installations with those coffee filters that were huge. Cascades hanging from these stairs. Let everything flow. Again, a reminder, using the material as a reminder how we need to learn to flow with life. Sometimes we are too hooked into the goal that we need to achieve, but we lose the sight of the day-to-day process, and that's very important, no matter the result. So, and for that, we need to learn to flow. And then exploration now was part of my thing. So why not? Let's jump into painting and some installations and sculptures here and there, but let's explore different mediums. So then I started working with Encaustic, which I don't know if you know the medium, or if you've been able to work with it. It's a I love to work with it. I guess that, again, it brings on, or it gets out of from me the kind of the sculpture that I am in reality, in the sense that I need to touch. Actually, when I paint, barely I use any regular, brushes, or I just use any other tools, but not, and sometimes your hands and any other tools, but not brushes. So I need to touch. So Encaustic, it was very, I love to work with it. I did actually break a little bit the rules, it was very, very rewarding. Things that supposedly you shouldn't do with these mediums, I was pushing the medium a little farther to test the medium how. So you see little incrustations of metal in the center bottom. Here again, metal on the background, metal on the beeswax. And the way the creative process was done, definitely, people who supposedly were an experts using this medium didn't really kind of agree with me, but the results, I love them, honestly. So again, jumping into paintings, different background, different surface. I find how, mediums, and you definitely, you will have this experience as well, how sometimes same colors or same paintings, but still different backgrounds, kind of brings different lights into and different look into the work that we do. Again, metals, as you see, oxidation is present in those green hues that you see in part of this painting that I'm showing you. Metal on the bottom. This time I use iron pumice. I like the metals in the sense, again, that brings that light from the bottom of the painting, as a way to remind ourselves that we light if we're capable to look inside and to shine from within. So metal in that sense, not just talk about the transition and the changes in life, but also the way we should look for our light. That
so
in
Esther,
a way is, yeah.
This is Peter. So one quick question. Is this done on metal, or are you drawing into the golden part?
This is wood board, wood panel.
Okay.
And it's painting, but I use pigments with metals. So this one in particular has iron pumice, that briefly you see those darks, right, flowing underneath the final layers. layer. I mean, at the end, again, I kept in my paintings a very fluid way to work. The process at the very beginning, if you saw the first paintings that I was doing, much more applying stuff on the surface, make it heavy, make it tangible, right? Make it, but then without actual intention, or not even realizing myself, I was switching. And I really realize now, looking back, that was actually an expression of the way I was feeling. Definitely, I was very heavy, very lost, my mood was very, very low. And I wasn't able to really feel that lightness that we all feel when we feel more happy and alive. So I was able to express that through my paintings, using also the process was very light. And palettes where they became a little bit lighter, metals present. Again, this painting has a lot of bronze and a lot of metal, the pyropamis as well. Metals, again, oxidation, 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 transformation, change in life. And that's part of life, and that's part of ourselves. We are not the same person that we were yesterday. And the process in itself, actually, it changes also aligned to that concept of adding life. It seems that life, so you are building a story, you building yourself. Life sometimes takes away things from you. Sometimes you feel that you lost something, personal skills, personal whatever. You can kind of, make your own bags right here and there. But at the end, today we are the result of all that process of adding and removing. But still, whatever is being removed, it leaves a sediment, it leaves a knowledge, it leaves a learning. So the paintings, in a way, the creative process actually navigates that idea into the action, into the way I create, adding, removing, and then creating very light paintings with a lot of layering, a lot of transparency, things that seem far, in a way, they are part of who you are today. As whatever in the painting seems far away in the compositions, but it's present on the surface, right? So I'm again making that analogy. Metals, and then I started exploring different mediums, working with from encaustic to installation. So every time I was bringing some installation into the exhibitions. So I was exploring with beeswax and wax, creating this installation that I did call Drops of Water, as I was studying and kind of reflecting about what was the meaning of life and what really means to be happy and be in the pursuit of happiness. It seems that if you are not happy nowadays, it seems that you are not successful in your life, right? But the truth is that it's not about happiness. So it's not about those drops of good things that fall into our hands that we need to kind of keep, because they are very ephemeral, and everything in a way, right, goes through our fingers. That's why the representation with wax in this installation, and my hands at the bottom, trying to get all those moments of happiness that meant to be like a drops of water, that they last for really few seconds in your hands, and then in a way they slip through your fingers, right? So still, how we are able to attain that feeling of happiness when life is like that, right? So from exploring with wax in that moment, actually in that installation for that show, I started opening doors to, other materials. What can I explore? ideas, concepts with different materials. So first time I encountered and started working with resin. This is an installation that I was commissioned for a museum here in Fifth Avenue for a group show. So I started working with the idea of how important it is to be, let's say, hooked to specific pillars that are important in our lives. But at the same time, we need to be able to navigate through them as Tarzan, getting one roped and then to another one, and then, but still having, even though you have those pillars to kind of find yourself in balance, we need to be able to really move around easily. So it came to me the idea of creating this kind of mesh created with resin, that it was like a overlap to each other, creating like a little bit, volume on it. Something that it seems that is entangled, but at the same time, it creates spaces where we might, find ways to breathe. And so that was my way to express. That installation was called "Loosen Your Ties," like a hey, right? Lose your muscle. And then it was brought to different locations. This is a hotel. The installation you see in the back made with resin. And then from there, first time ever, I started exploring printmaking. Why not? Very hard medium. I don't know if you want any of you, it's printmaker. I guess you, Alan, right? You play with printmaking? No? Oh, I thought so. So I started using the material that I was using for those installations, the resin that I built, to use them as a plates for printing. So I was doing a series of printmaking, monoprints, etchings, name it. So that's one example of what I was doing with that material resin into the paper. And then, of course, since I explored into resin and wax, I created a series of sculptures that were in a way broken. I started to navigate with the idea of, aren't we all broken in a way? Why we all pursue perfection when perfection is something so abstract and so unattainable? Why we all navigate in life looking for that, when I find that is in the imperfection what really defines who we are. So then I started opening this idea and exploring different mediums. I work with wax, breaking the wax, and then from there I jumped into another medium that is called hydrocal. It's a mix in between white cement and fiberglass. And I started creating a beautiful work. I mean, in my opinion, very, very sensitive, very, very, the material really performs as a little bit of marble, with some transparency and delicacy, but still strong in a way. So I started working with this series of sculptures made with hydrocal. Beautiful in the way that allowed me the material to create layering, which I find defines my work in paintings. Also, is very aligned on the ideas that the work is sustained. So my work started to get more shape in a way, or the concept started to create a little bit more solid shape in ideas as imperfection. We need to embrace those imperfections, our imperfections, the imperfections that life has in a way. We need as well to open up ourselves and peel all those layers that are going to allow us to discover really who we are and who we could become. And that's a process of growing. Nothing is defined. Everything is in process. So the layering in my work, installations, paintings, sculptures is present. Again, as a reminder of that concept. Then I was invited to participate in another show to create these beautiful single sculptures with hydrocal, challenging the balance on the pieces, showing that they were broken but still beautiful. Again, working with the sculptures, actually I was able to push them, and then with as those Russian dolls, I don't know how they called, but how like those Russian dolls that you push, and then they for some time they keep moving until they get their center balance. So these pieces were performing like that, and that's how I feel sometimes when life brings you like a splash, right? Push you in a ways that you might not expect. You are for quite some time, right, doing that feeling that way. Those broken parts that, in a way, I find that we all have those broken parts through trauma, through fear, through insecurity, through whatever happened in our journey. But those, sometimes they need to be embraced, sometimes they're able to be healed, sometimes they're not, but still it's part of who we are. And being open in that journey and showing that vulnerability doesn't make us more fragile, but in the opposite, it makes us really stronger. So this is a photo of that exhibition with those pieces. Made on hydrocal. And then life comes as it comes. And then I got very sick, because I guess I wasn't very cautious using these materials. And then I had several surgeries, and I had to explore different materials because I couldn't use the materials that I was using before. They were toxic. So that's when I did open up to explore something else. And it came to me, this material that I'm presently working very much. Most of my latest work, actually, it's focused, it used this material. It's called paper clay. These are paper pulp. And I was amazed how the material kind of was aligned of those on those ideas that I was already exploring, as the layering, as way to look inwards and find who we are and define and create, and the way actually the material shows lights and shadows when light face them, as a way also to remind ourselves that we need to embrace our lights and our shadows, because the whole is what make us who we are. So again, the material really was very aligned to all those ideas. So I started exploring, amazed for the delicacy as well of the material, and I started creating art with. First of all, was these compositions that were a lot of layers with the paper clay. Then adding a little bit of painting also on the paper clay to see how they performed. That was a test that one of the first tests that I did. Why not including the metal on the work as a way to remind ourselves that we shine from within, and that those that we call imperfections could be actually our assets. Because in a way, when you look at this series that is called Embracing Imperfections, in a way, the eye goes to those cracks. And those cracks is what actually define the composition. So again, I'm doing that analogy with the idea that we need to embrace those imperfections, because actually that's what really define who we are, and that reminder that we need to look inward, so we're able to bring the light from within and shine from within. So compositions that many times actually were different boards, and I love actually to work with different boards. This all this work is onto a wood panels. So the why, you might ask, why different boards in every, when you create compositions. Again, I bring, so the meaning behind is that sometimes we need to puzzle things, right? To resolve, to make something, to have some meaning, sometimes it's not a whole, it's parts of things, stuff, feelings that makes us whole. So that's why, the idea of multiple boards. Layering, the beauty of the material that allows me to spark not just imperfections, but also the lights and shadows. I sometimes intentionally leave the background visible. So for me, it's a way to remind that we need to embrace our vulnerability, the rawness that we have. Because when we embrace actually our vulnerability, is a way for us to make us stronger, to build rapport with others, to really connect. And that's something very important. Lights and shadows, as you see in the artwork, is very, very important. How the light faces the work, and the again, the analogy of, we are not just what we see in the tip of the iceberg, but we are everything else that underneath the water, right? Below surface. So the shadows, the reflections of the material on the wall, and all the contour that you see around the work, are something that is not tangible as the bottom of the iceberg, but it's very heavy in ourselves, and it means a lot, and it's part of who we are. So we don't have to forget that. That's why the shadows and the lights are very important in the artwork. Layering, shadows, lights reflecting the artwork is key. I find that when light fades the artwork, builds it creates a different complexity, I might say. So this layering, these examples of work are called Where the Light Gets In, taking the lyrics from Leonard Cohen. So the light comes through those layers. The light comes through exploring who we are, embracing the lights and the shadows, embracing the imperfection. If you look at this artwork, you might, and I love this piece in the sense that it's so, it's tilted, you might think, it's imperfect. It seems that it's not straight, but it's what it is, right? And with its personality and its, so that imperfection, that kind of push myself to allow myself to live the imperfect, to let the artwork talk by itself, to be themselves. That's a way to, again, another beautiful reminder of how we should, keep our minds open with these concepts. And then sometimes we are broken and we have just pieces. So what can we do with them, right? So then this idea open up another body of work with paper clay, where I use little pieces to build our work. Many times in white. I mean, I'm very focused with this color, white, and then orange, as you saw previously. This is another series called Goes Around, Comes Around, different way to work the material. Still the cracking is present, the layering is present, the shadow and the lighting is present, the volume is present, the metals are present. As I said, sometimes the background remains raw as the wood panel is, or sometimes I work with metals in the background, trying to bring the spark from the within. Using the material to push myself. These are just tests, but I find them very intriguing. The layering with the paper clay. This series is called One Step at a Time. I choose to work in narrow, long boards as a way to talk about the journey of life, that it seems linear, but it's not linear. How sometimes, right, life is in a way very vulnerable. We might find that the soil that the path that we walk is not kind of solid. Many times we find that way, we feel that way, but still it's a journey. So that's why the crackling, on the artwork is present, and is built actually as little pebbles that we walk. And this is another series called Resilience, where I push the material to bend. So in order to, and exploring this concept of being resilient, what that means is our ability to get back, right, to recover in a way our point of balance, our point of bliss. So pushing the material to be flexible is a reminder that let's say talent or skill is tangible, is achievable if you are able to really keep your mind flexible. To keep, we all know that neuroplastic allows our mind to really learn new things, to take out of our mind, from our minds, certain beliefs that maybe sometimes they hold us or they block us, or so we need to review everything that we have there up here to really create our mind more in a growing flow, in a learning flow, in a way of living stuff and getting new stuff and learning new things. So forcing the material to be more flexible is a way to remind that we all have, no matter how old we are, we all have that talent and that ability to learn. It's not the answer of, well, I'm the way I am. It's not an answer anymore. We need to know that we are able to change and to grow. And this series of work that, the material is kind of more folded and bended is a reminder of that. And this is a new series that I started actually this past summer in Spain. That is being called Big Water, as a reminder of we need to be like water, flowing as much as we can. And that movement of the paper clay, it reminds me to that ability, that we need to train. And I'm leaving you with this short video with a few words, and I hope you enjoy.
Great.
And that is
Thank
all on
you.
my part.
Well, I have a bunch of questions. So Alan, do you want to stop and then we can do some questions, the Q&A?
Yeah. Is my screen stopped or?
No, you're still going.